so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much.
Hello, all you positive heads out there. Thanks for tuning your beautiful brainwaves into another episode of the Positive Head Podcast, where we are firmly convinced that creating success and happiness is rooted in understanding the ultimate nature of reality and the fact that as human beings, we are all immensely powerful fractals of the one and only source consciousness, which creates and animates all things. Now, of course, understanding this powerful truth is one thing. Applying this incredibly empowering wisdom to everyday life? Well, that's another, which is exactly why we provide you with a fresh serving of soul food for thought 5 days a week to help constantly remind you of what matters most. You are it. And I'm your host, Brandon Beecham. I'm the reflection and extension of you who will be here each Wednesday interviewing a different consciousness changemaker. And on the other 4 weekdays, leading the way to ensure that your perspective is consistently expanded, your vibration is constantly elevated, and your heart is overflowing and full. Also, before we jump into today's episode, I'd like to take about a minute and a half to tell you about a few sponsors that not only help to make it possible to produce this show 5 days a week, but that I'm also genuinely passionate about promoting. The first longtime stellar supporter of the show that I want to mention is Gaia. If you're not familiar, Gaia is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content online with over 8,000 video titles. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. The second sponsor I'm sincerely passionate about promoting is Purium. It's no mystery that bringing your mind, body, and spirit into balance is necessary if a person truly intends to manifest the greatest and grandest version of themselves. So if you've been looking for a way to easily get organic superfoods into your system every day with a simple plan that can help you reestablish a healthier foundation and relationship with food, like I was doing before I found Purium, I highly recommend going to positivehead.com/transformation and checking out the videos and interviews there where I dive deeply into discussions explaining why I take these products every day. And should you ultimately end up on iShopPurium.com to purchase any of their 50 plus amazing superfood products, be sure to use the code POSITIVEHEAD, all one word, for a 25% discount. All right, all you positive heads, welcome, welcome. Here we grow again. So grateful to be back with you guys as always. Today we are going to talk about being real versus being perfect. We were born to be real, not to be perfect. That whole idea and how we can get out of the loop, the never-ending loop of validation seeking. How many of us have spent countless amounts of hours and time seeking validation? I know I definitely have, and I realize how futile that is at this point in my journey. I'm not going to say I never seek validation, but I certainly don't seek it to the degree I once did, and I have realized that I am indeed enough, and you are enough, and there's nothing that I need to do in order to be more enoughness. We're going to talk about that a bit here in a minute. And one thing before I kind of go deeper down that rabbit hole, I would like to just mention to you guys is this optimistic retreat, the new show that's coming up. I absolutely would love to have you guys there. And we're probably about a quarter of the way filled, as I mentioned yesterday. There's 111 magical spots, 111 golden tickets, if you will. And I really, really want to make sure that all of you who are feeling, those of you who are like, I have that pang that I'd really like to come, but, I'm not quite sure how I'd pull it off. And the financial aspect of it and, a full week and all those things. I don't want any of that to get in the way for people. I really want to do whatever I can to bend over backwards and make it work for you. So I'd love to talk with you. Drop me an email, Brandon@positivehead.com, and we can explore the possibility of co-creating you spending a week at the Mystic Manor. It is going to be so epic and next level. The Jedi warrior, goddess, princess, multidimensional, I don't know, insert every possible magical name. The people that I have curating this, it's going to be so epic for all of you. And of course, you get to be on the live taping of Optimistic. You're going to be on an episode of Positive Head as well. We get to spend a lot of time together, family style meals, all of that jazz. It's going to be so magical. And I really, really don't want finances to get in the way for people. So if you're feeling like, gosh, I'd love to be there, I just got to figure out, I want to figure out how to do it. And, together, if we put our heads together, I know that we can overcome those obstacles and realizing that there is a truly unlimited abundance at all of our disposal. And I'm willing to work out some very flexible things to make it happen for you guys. So drop me an email, Brandon@positivehead.com, if you'd like to explore that conversation with me. And so seeking validation and stopping that never-ending, maddening cycle. How do we get off of that wheel? And it starts by, of course, like everything, having the right perspective on who and what you are. For me, as someone who's been very driven to perform and to create and to show how capable I am my whole life, from creating success in business or with this podcast or, even with this next show with Optimistic, it's like I've really moved into a place where, I have expectations for it to be great and for it to really have a ripple of impact in the world that helps millions of people is my vision. But I'm not attached to that vision. I can think back to my band many years ago when I started that, 20 years ago now. That's crazy to think about. And, it was so important to make it somewhere, to make it big. And it went from being really, really fun early on when the creativity was so high to years later, like, our bass player's brother is in No Doubt and we're playing with all these big bands and we've got to get there. And, and then it became drudgery. It became work. It took the joy out of it. And you're here to be joyful, to be fun, to be your authentic self. You are exactly like you are for a reason. Your soul actually designed who you are. With your, whatever, you may think from your conscious mind, I'm too short, I'm too fat, I'm too ugly, my face is that. Any of those thoughts are nonsense. You're an eternal being who had all unlimited choices at your disposal of what you could be and create and do. And you chose to show up exactly like you are for a very definitive reason. And by realizing that, you now can love that. You can love your quirks. You can love your quote unquote shortcomings. It's like perfection is kind of dull, right? I mean, it really is. When you start thinking about the Japanese, they take a broken piece of china and they'll fill it with gold. And the idea is that they have now patched it up and it's more beautiful because of the crack that took place. And that's you. That's your soul. You didn't come here to be a perfect, shiny doll that is, flawless. It's like yawn. Think about something that's just so perfect. It's just there's no character to it. And you have a lot of character and you are a unique character. You're the only character like yourself. Stop if you've ever tried to be someone else. Don't try and be me. Don't try and be anyone else, right? I mean, everyone else is taken. You have your own unique gifts, that you have your own role that you're meant to play that nobody can play better than you. And what happens with a lot of us is we get so caught up on the wheel of seeking validation and making it somewhere and comparing ourselves with the Joneses and all of those things that we don't ever fully realize the potential of who and what we can become and what we're meant to become in the world. And you are at a point where you are smart enough to realize this, and we are doing it together. I don't need to try and be like any other podcaster, or when I do Optimistic, any other talk show host or any of that. And I actually don't even really care what they do. I've hardly listened to podcasts, not because I don't enjoy them. I actually do. It's just a bandwidth thing with all the juggling and, all other businesses and all the things that I do. It's made it difficult, but I haven't ever mirrored myself after anyone else because I've hardly listened to anyone else. And so, and that can work to your favor, and it can also be detrimental. Like anything, if you take it too far, it's always about finding the balance. To get influenced by someone is a great thing in a proper balance, right? If I'm trying to emulate someone exactly and not tap into my own inner creativity, now it's out of balance and it's not a healthy thing. So it's really about finding the balance of, when, sort of going to others. If you're making music, getting influenced by other music can be wonderful. If you're trying to be the Beatles, good luck. Like you got your work cut out and, it's already been done by the best, the souls that were meant to be it. So be you, seek you, stop seeking validation. Social media has this whole thing that is just all about, look at me and look at my highlight reel and how do I put the perfect filter on it to make me look better than I do, or Photoshop it. And all of that is like, if you're doing any of that, once again, if it's in a healthy, what is the intention? What's the underlying energy behind it? If whatever you're doing is coming from a well-adjusted place and it's not like because you really feel inadequate inside, then you're okay, right? If you're doing it because you're feeling inadequate and you're trying to, get likes so that you can feel good about yourself, you know deep down if that's what it is. And if so, I would challenge you to first off love yourself where you are. That's okay where you're at. But to also seek to get off that hamster wheel, to remove yourself from that hamster wheel that will never, ever fulfill you. It's like Jim Carrey said, I wish everyone could become rich and famous so they could see that's not where it's at. It truly is like, how much of our life we spend chasing some unattainable perfection or goal. If I just hit this goal or get this approval from this person, then I'll be enough. You are enough right now. You are a divine emanation of source, as perfect as any being has ever been or ever will be. You are absolutely perfectly imperfect, right? And that when you really let that sink in, now you can really, really start to live from a place of, I don't give a what in a really good way. You are not caring in a really good way. You are, just shamelessly yourself, and that authenticity people are going to feel. And then what are people drawn to? Authenticity. What are people drawn to? Vulnerability. Why? Because they can actually relate to it, not some false, doctored up image on social media. So what I'd like to do is I actually found I'd seen this actually a while back, a article that I'm going to read real quick here that talks about this very thing. I found it on Laura Matsue, Matsue, Laura Matsue's website, and it's titled "The New Deception: The Sexy, Spiritual, Successful Goddess." Do I fall into that category? I don't know. I don't think I quite qualify, which is probably a good thing after I read this article. All right, I'm going to read this. Here we go. These days, women are not only haunted by the usual matrix images in the media telling them what to look like, what to eat, and how to live, in quotes, lifestyle porn. But even in the spiritual community, women are now being programmed through the whole quote unquote spiritual goddess and quote unquote vegan yogi culture trends to be another thing. Sexy, successful, perfect, and of course, ultra spiritual demigods who are quote unquote manifestors of abundance, who can teach you how to be like them. Along with a whole other bunch of new age catchphrases that present a new certain stereotype of how the quote unquote spiritual woman should look like, act like, and be like. Every course, teacher, article, retreat who promises others how to be a conscious man or conscious woman, or tells others how to be the divine feminine or divine masculine, and then lists a certain set of attributes for others to emulate in order to embody that ideal, is basically a manipulation strategy, spiritualizing the game, wherein the sexes are pitted against one another by trying to be an ideal of what they feel the other wants in order to gain more love, attention, affection from them. Then there's a little cartoon put in here, and it's a monk-like guy, and he's got a little speech bubble, and he goes, "Always seek the approval of others. It fills the emptiness inside you. It also makes the emptiness larger so it can hold more approval." There seems to be an idea amongst these communities that to be a goddess is to present yourself in a flowing dress, modestly to overtly sexualizing yourself in order to show the world how you have embodied the divine feminine. Everywhere we are now bombarded with the images of this sexy spiritual woman and told that this is an aspect of empowered marketing. But the trap of using the sexualized female images to sell a product is nothing new. It is a classic media ploy wherein, quite simply, sex sells. Peruse Instagram these days and you'll see many women posting excessive selfies with quotes from enlightened masters as a caption, showing how beautiful and how spiritual they are, with their perfect yoga body, and somehow always on vacation or in some minimalist home. This pattern I vaguely bought into as well. Yet, as time went on, even if I posted a selfie that got 1,000 likes, I could see that the mere act of doing so was still feeding into my need to be validated for an appearance. I was also selling myself short by using my image more than I was using my gifts. And as time went on, something felt very off to me in the energy I would get from the excessive, predatory, and thirsty comments from men. Many of the people who were drawn to my images didn't seem to care much about what I said, which I couldn't complain about either because I was feeding on the attention with my own narcissism. Let's also look at this image of the goddess and how we've begun to distort this inner essence by attributing it to certain sets of external imagery. I feel that once we travel along far enough in our journey, we begin to discover that true beauty is in fact mostly internal. There are older women who are strong in themselves and have been through an immense amount of internal transformation and simply radiate. Gray hair, wrinkles, and all. There are also younger women who have not done any inner work and still mainly depend on their beauty in the world and use it as an excuse to be vain, cruel, and self-centered. The most powerful archetypes of goddesses I have met have been elder women. Women who can demonstrate strength, compassion, wisdom, love, sensitivity, receptiveness, and most importantly, self-respect with a simple look in their eyes. I believe the true divine female has little to nothing to do with an image, but has to do with an ability to carry sensitivity, strength, and receptivity into the body, so much so that the mere presence of women like this can heal. The dark feminine, which I've also witnessed in myself, had a lot to do with deluding oneself and manipulating others, especially through using sexuality to do so. When we use sexual manipulation to get others' attention, when we use our images to lure others in so that people will be distracted by aesthetics instead of the inner aspects of ourselves, when we attempt to hypnotize by this image so that others treat us with a certain way, we are using power of the lower vital urges to draw people on. Our lower self, insecure and never satisfied, continuously feeds off the energy that this attention gets us. We use this cheap form of power and perpetuate the collective abuse of reptilian-like hypersexualization that is plastered all over mainstream advertising. And in spirituality, many women now sell their own image in this same way as these matrix programs and dress it up as something enlightened. But when we objectify the female image by looking at it as something we can sexualize and sell, we perpetuate this toxic pattern by using our own bodies against our soul. I have found one of the biggest barriers in me being able to be authentically me is caring about being popular and about who and what others think and believing I had some kind of image to maintain. In 2015, over the course of a year, my Instagram blew up to over 30,000 followers. I also signed a contract with a publisher, one of my so-called dreams at the time. And during those couple years that followed, I saw myself buying into the image that I was projecting. I felt I had to maintain this spiritual, mystical image because that's the image that people were projecting onto me. I wanted to be seen as something otherworldly, something that was not my messy, human, normal, and quite frankly, kind of boring self. Over the course of a couple years, I became an avatar of my own destruction, a creation based on a fantasy I had on what the spiritual journey looked like and of what others wanted it to look like too. I began catering what I shared with what people seemed to be like, believing that the more popular I got, the better I was doing, the more opportunities it would make for my career in the long term. It became less about my own process, but how I could monetize spirituality. I even deluded myself into believing that through this curated image, I was actually helping people. Looking back now, I see how many things I posted were drenched in my own inauthenticity of wanting to be more popular, to be seen as sexual, spiritual, and awake. This felt even more wrong because a lot of people went along with it, but my true self knew and felt how I was lying to myself. I saw people buying into the manipulated image that I created, and I was caught in another matrix trapping of thinking I had to be this thin, perfect, vegan, yogi to present this certain image to the world. And at the end of the day, no matter how popular I got, I still never felt good enough. When I faced my own narcissistic wounding, I went through an intense disillusionment process. I had to give up everything I was trying to be to become who I was again. In doing this, I also had to give up my ambition to turn any part of my spiritual path into a career. I made a deeper commitment to my journey, where I would put seeking truth and the process of my own awakening above everything else in my life, especially these petty concerns of being popular, being liked, or being successful. Otherwise, I was about to sacrifice all the wisdom I gained and turn it around into another form of self-deception. I saw how through lying to myself, by creating this false image of a spiritual person, I was lying to others, creating more karmic entanglements, and it was great misdeeds towards humanity and women especially, one which I could not bear the weight of. My publishing deal fell through, a blessing in disguise, which gave me the freedom to truly not give it an F anymore. I could be me again, as I felt I had nothing to lose. I stopped focusing on my image and started focusing mainly on my writing. I lost a lot of followers who were mainly focused on this false image, and I was grateful for it. This experience grounded me into a deeper level of commitment towards the path and reminded me why I even started this journey. The benevolent forces of the universe and my internal guidance system wouldn't allow me to get away with selling my spiritual journey or a spiritual image, and I got right back onto the true path of honoring myself and my heart. I was brought back to the aspirations that started me on the path to begin with. My soul knew that in my small human life, there's no other option but to awaken and awaken deeper, and that we're all here to expand our own shallow understandings of who we think we are. In that expansion, all the lies, the delusions, the ambitions, all the plans we had for ourselves need to disintegrate so we can reveal the larger plan of what God has planned for us. In order to stay in integrity, we need to identify when the ego tries to hijack our experiences, take credit for them, and attach more of a false identity to ourselves because of it. These divine forces have much better plans for our soul than any diversion our small self tries to architect, and whatever falsities the ego tries to build, the higher self will take no mercy in demolishing. We live in a selfie generation where narcissism and propping up our self-image is a norm. However, this does not mean that this trend should be continued or bought into for the sake of gaining more followers, clients, etc. When we are in alignment with our true purpose, invisible forces will assist us in having the right people find us. We will not have to use seduction or deception to draw them in. Using female sexuality to sell a product is one of the number one matrix marketing tools, and if the content is good, then it won't be necessary. As women, if we feel the need to seduce someone to buy our services, we are selling our souls to the system that treats our body as objects and commodities. This is very important. Our seeing the feminine as a commodity to be used, bought, sold is the main driving attitude towards the mindless destruction of the resources of the earth itself. If you want to sell high-quality organic food, do you need a beautiful woman wearing a bikini holding it in order to sell it? If our gifts are valuable, will we not need to market ourselves in a way which objectifies the beauty at the cost of the soul? This is not body shaming anyone, but I see too many women using their images to seduce people in order to buy their services. Conversely, we also cannot be who we truly are if we are thinking we must be or act a certain way and hold ourselves up to impossible standards that this new spiritual beauty myth tries to create. Only when we allow ourselves to be the changeable, unknowable, living and dying yet infinite being with our own unique flavor as we live our purpose do we become more true embodiments of the divine, in its masculine and feminine form, merging and dancing together as one. We must be brave enough to show up as our true selves, and this means however that shows up, in every form it can possibly take. You are enough. In order to embody the authenticity of this true self, we must dissolve old programs where we expect ourselves to be a certain way, look a certain way, act a certain way, take off every mask, dissolve the old conditioning that breaks our spirit so that we can allow the essence of our unique imprint to arise as it is in every moment. You're never more sexy, spiritual, and successful than when you allow yourself to be the person that you truly are. That was Laura Matsue, and it's on lauramatsue.com. Very well said, Laura. Love it. And it's super important. You know, one of the things here, she has from Chogyam Trungpa, she has a quote that says, "The problem is that ego can convert anything to its own use, even spirituality." And so true. It's like, you know, once again, what I said at the beginning, finding that balance is so important. finding that, what we have to be careful, the pendulum like swings, right? It swings so many, a lot of times the pendulum will swing one way and then it'll swing hard back the other way. And it's not really finding balance, right? So if we all of a sudden decide that we got to be careful not to shame someone who's just really beautiful, who is doing yoga, and that's their passion. What is the intention for which you're posting? Is it really your passion? Are you up at 6 a.m. doing it like my friend who, it's like their life? So for them to be posting something about that and they happen to be very beautiful, that's like in divine alignment, right? If I'm pretending to be something I'm not, because I think that's what it takes to be, loved, that's a whole different thing, right? What is the underlying energy of what you're doing? You have to be careful to say, how many of you out there I know are doing something, you're wanting to get out of your day job to do something that is more in alignment with spirituality, right? So we got to be careful not to make it wrong to have a business that is spiritual centric, and that's how you're providing and supporting yourself, right? What is the underlying aim of it? Is there true intention behind it? No, a pure intention to do well, to do good for others, and including yourself and self-love? Great. Then it's based in something really authentic, right? If it's like, how can I create this trinket that's made from really unsustainable products that, I could care less about just to take advantage of suckers that will buy it, that's not authentic. And that's not coming from, that authentic place. So really, the more in alignment with authenticity that we can get, the better. No one needs to be shamed for being beautiful, for having a beautiful picture, any of those things. I want to be really, really careful with that, the pendulum swinging the other way. Well, all of a sudden it's like, oh, look at you. You're beautiful. You shouldn't be posting. You should hide that now. Now that becomes wrong. No, not cool. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. I'm sticking with it. I think you all get it. I think we're all getting it, realizing that, authenticity. We are born to be real, not to be perfect. And if you're being real, you will attract the people that are perfect for you. And your authentic gift can come out and really flourish in a way that is super purely beautiful, not contrived in any way. Let's get away from being contrived is really, and it's easy to do. And I know I've done it. It's no judgment on anyone who's doing it right now. Once again, Laura had her process, right? So if she were to now, and I'm not saying she is, I'm just using her as an example, now to just say, I hate on anyone who's somewhere else in the process that she was in 2 years ago, that is in itself completely unbalanced, right? So I think it's really, really important to understand that for all of us. We all are at our own unique place in the journey. So to hate on anyone who's really caught up in projecting their image in a false way and being inauthentic, I still think they're beautiful. I still love them. And being able to see through that, right? That's where you really help to upgrade people, is seeing the true light that they are behind any of the masks. If they're being ugly or mean or any of those things, our job, like the book, The Little Soul in the Sun, is to be, it talks about, and I've, recommended many, many times, my favorite book, the children's book. It basically when the little soul that's going to go dark so that the other soul can have the experience to forgive him, he said, all I ask is that you remember me, who I truly am in that moment. And that's how we create people and we bring out their greatest and grandest self, how we step into a timeline where they are upgrading and we see an upgraded version of them by holding that image in our mind's eye, in our hearts. That's the challenge, is to go out when you see someone who's really lost, on the false projecting, inauthentic, and you feel it everywhere exuding off of them. Your job is, if you view them as an enlightened master that's come to challenge you, right? To challenge you to see them for who and what they truly are. Now you are really doing something profound and powerful for yourself and creating the world around you in a way that is beautiful and meaningful. All right, everyone. That's it for today. I do have a track to leave you with. This is Tor, T-O-R. Love Tor. Saw Tor actually a couple years ago at Envision Festival. Last set before I hopped on the plane to leave. Really, really good stuff. This is Glass and Stone. Hope you enjoy. Till next time, journey well. Love you all so, so much. Also, before we cue up today's song, I wanted to let you all know that we have finally created the Game with the Universe on our website, where you can choose the first number that comes to your mind, and it'll pull up that episode number of the podcast. I've been saying this is a great way to co-create synchronicity and magic with your higher self for quite some time by doing this manually. But now, if you go to positivehead.com/YO universe, there is a super fun and simple interface to play this game with your higher self. I firmly believe just by setting the intention to play in this way, it opens up the door for magic, and it's a synchronistic way to hone in on nuggets of wisdom out of the huge catalog of episodes that are specifically appropriate for you at this time in your journey to becoming the next greatest and grandest version of yourself. And it also makes for a super fun way to engage and invite friends, family, people on social media to check out the podcast as well. So be sure to check out positivehead.com/YOUNIVERSE, and be sure to tell all your friends so they can play a game with the universe, which also helps the show to reach new people, which I greatly appreciate. And as a quick reminder, be sure to also check out positivehead.com/transformation if you're curious to learn more about Purium superfoods and why I take them every day. On this journey of becoming the next greatest and grandest version of ourselves that we have all embarked upon, I can't stress the importance of managing your physical vibration enough. And quite honestly, Purium has put together the simplest plan I've found to do so, and I'm sincerely excited to share it with all of you. Lastly, if you're craving more consciousness elevating content, be sure to check out Gaia, which is my personal go-to source for streaming consciousness content on the web, where you can stream an incredible 7,000 plus exclusive videos covering 5,000 years of wisdom. As you all hear me constantly say, it's a daily conscious effort to maintain an elevated vibration. And if you're looking to journey deep down the rabbit hole to do so, then Gaia is the best place I know of to do it, period. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out.